When optionality eats obligation. Over a long enough time horizon, the calendar stops being a plan and becomes a list of maybes. Meetings get tentative, approvals wait in queues, and notifications replace the quiet certainty that someone will actually show up. As optionality scales, obligation doesn't vanish because people become worse. It vanishes because the system rewards reversible choices and makes long-term commitments expensive to maintain across time. Start with the basic mechanism. When everything is easy to change, the default becomes keep options open. That posture feels rational because it reduces immediate risk. But it also changes what gets counted as success. In the short term, convenience looks like a win. A button unsubscribes, a meeting becomes drop-in, a checklist becomes suggested. The incentive is clear. Flexibility protects attention and reduces exposure to regret. The immediate feedback loop is positive. Fewer hard promises means fewer moments of obvious failure. When expectations are softened, fewer people can accuse you of breaking them. There is also an explicit constraint: finite attention. A day has a fixed number of hours, and a mind has a limited number of open loops it can carry without degradation. Under that constraint, optionality becomes a form of triage. If a commitment can be postponed at low social cost, it will be postponed, because postponement is cheaper than refusal and safer than full consent. But every constraint introduces a trade-off. The trade-off here is between flexibility and reliability. Optionality preserves individual maneuverability, while obligation produces predictable coordination. A culture that prices flexibility above all else is purchasing short-term comfort with long-term uncertainty. Over the mid-horizon, the system adapts. Once maybe becomes common, people stop building plans that depend on yes. Coordination shifts from shared commitments to continuous checking, more reminders, more pings, more status updates, more dashboards. That creates a new feedback loop. The more coordination requires monitoring, the more monitoring becomes proof of care. Reliability is replaced by responsiveness. If you answer quickly, you appear committed, even if you never lock anything in. That swap has a second-order effect. It changes what kinds of people and practices can survive. Deep work, long training arcs, patient craft, and slow reconciliation depend on intervals where nothing needs to be renegotiated. When every agreement is provisional, those intervals shrink. The system selects for surface-level availability over durable contribution because availability is easier to measure and easier to display. Across longer horizons, the tail risk arrives. A society of optional commitments becomes brittle. Not because it is immoral, but because it is undergoverned. When obligations are treated like subscriptions, people begin to treat relationships, teams, and institutions as services rather than covenants. The result is not freedom in a civilizational sense. It is a coordination deficit. Trust becomes a scarce resource, and scarcity invites control. More policies, more approvals, more tracking, more escalation paths, more friction imposed from above to compensate for missing self-binding below. Uncertainty matters here. Not every form of optionality is corrosive. Some is genuinely protective. There are contexts where reversible choices prevent harm and allow learning. The difficulty is that the system does not reliably distinguish between wise reversibility and convenience-driven avoidance. It simply reinforces whatever reduces immediate discomfort and maximizes short-term throughput. So the question is not whether choice is good. The question is what the system permits, constrains, and ignores when choice is designed to be frictionless. When exit is effortless, staying becomes less meaningful. When commitments are cheap to break, they become cheap to make, and cheap promises cannot carry much load across time. This is where human values and attention quietly shift. If our environment trains us to treat every yes as provisional, we begin to allocate attention toward what is newest, loudest, or most easily revised. We can become excellent at optimizing the surface of life. Fast replies, clean inboxes, agile schedules, while losing the ability to hold steady aims. Obligation, at its best, is a governance tool for the self and for groups. A constraint that protects what we claim to value from the volatility of mood, novelty, and competing incentives. When obligations disappear, it is not only tasks that dissolve. It is the shared reality that allows people to coordinate without surveillance. And because no system is neutral, convenience encodes a value, that the cost of exit should be near zero. That value has consequences. It privileges the present over the future, the measurable over the meaningful, and the individual's optionality over the group's continuity. The culture then lends to praise choice while quietly outsourcing responsibility to software, policy, or constant renegotiation. In that sense, governance is part of the system. If the defaults reward reversible living, the long-term work of building anything stable must swim upstream, not through heroism, but through better constraints and clearer expectations about what is truly optional and what is not. Hold one assumption up to the light. Choose a single time horizon, 1 week, 1 season, 1 year, and ask which obligation in that horizon is being treated like a toggle, not a bond. Notice the risk it creates if everyone around it behaves the same way, and notice what the system is rewarding when maybe feels safer than yes. We will not eliminate uncertainty, but we can name what optionality erodes when it scales, the load-bearing promises that make time livable. The future is shaped by constraints, not wishes.